Good evening and welcome to episode 69 of the Jacksonian. I'm yours truly, Jackson Johnson, and I have with me is the co-host of Unfair Sports, the one and only himself, Eric Cooper, as he brings that magic on Unfair Sports with Jay Smith on Unfair Sports and so much more. And let me tell you something, folks, it's going to be a wild ride discussing our take on the Oklahoma Sooners going into 2025. How you doing today, good buddy?
Hey man, I am doing good, and it's just fun to be able to talk some football on May the 9th. Again, it's the gift that keeps on giving all year round, and so much better than the Jelly of the Month Club.
I know, right? It's like you don't necessarily need it, but you don't necessarily need a Jelly of the Month club, but you need some college football, especially in the
Definitely,
merry month of May. I mean, we're getting closer to kickoff, so it's like we gotta have something to look forward to.
definitely,
There
definitely,
we
and again, everything that's happening along the teams right now is private workouts and whatnot, and so you hit the Bird app, the X, Twitter, whatever we're still calling it, and it's list season and engagement farming season. So if you go and look and you find that somebody puts out a list that Alabama and Oklahoma are not in the top 50 programs of all time, they just want your reaction. So don't press send if you lose your mind because of those
there you,
lists.
there you go, man. And for those who want to learn a little more about you, try to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Eric Cooper. I'm a promotions director with USA Today. So I work with a lot of our national brands and franchises and whatnots. And Jay and I have been running Unfair Sports in the Sooner or Later podcast. Let's see, I'm going for about 2 years. Jay started a little bit before myself, and so a couple guys who love Oklahoma football and love what's going on around it. We find ourselves, we don't have a pay site, we don't have like a subscription fee or anything like that. We just like talking ball, and we got a good amount of connections throughout the place. Neither of us played football at OU. I walked on the baseball team. And so I've got some tenure at the university, spending time down there. But yeah, we just continue to do this, just kind of to find out what's real, what's true, get reactions to what's going on, because there's always something happening when you're a program like Alabama or Oklahoma.
There we go. I mean, it's always interesting seeing what's going on with the Oklahoma Sooners, and I'll be honest, it's always fun looking forward to what's going on with them, like especially with you and Jay Smith at Unfair Sports, and he brings that magic with John Williams at Locked On Sooners, and it's
Yes,
like
sir.
Sooners Wire and Sooners Scoop at On Three and the Rivals publication OU Insider. So it's like,
Yeah,
well, I mean, there's like in Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football. So it's like there's all kinds of places everywhere. It's like boom, it's like a
lots.
gold mine.
Yeah. Lots of stuff. Now, I got to say this. I mean, just content around it. Everybody's got opinions, and I think that there's a lot of programs where you have fans who want to consume this content all the time, and instead of watching cat videos and responses about what's going on with the government, a lot of people would rather just listen to whoever has a take on OU football, and so it gives us something to do, but. I got to say, we also have some of the best listeners, some of the best subscribers. I'll join on other shows like Hall of Fame with Jason, at times. And, there's a lot of crossover, JP and Trav. I mean, there's so many different guys that you can do great stuff. Cap 405, he's got his own avenue too. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things. So we just are happy that people tune in and listen to what we have to say.
Well, there we go. But of course, we'll start off with the 2024 season that happened. Like it was, yikes.
Yeah. There's the saying, some of the best laid plans. And I think that going into this season in 2024, there were a lot of people who looked at things and said, okay, what we kind of need to do at this point is see Jackson Arnold progress as a quarterback, use a lot of this young talent, continue to progress in the rebuild of a defense that was, I mean, frankly, just a laughing stock of college football. And so OU became synonymous with they will score on anybody, but they can't stop a nosebleed. And so, they took those best laid plans, Jackson, and it kind of went like this. And it was out, like in any football season, everything that you think is going to happen up front, doesn't always necessarily happen. So before the season started, you had 3 receivers who were unable to take a snap at the beginning of the season. And you ended up at a spot where your top 6 receivers were no longer available. You had 30 some odd combinations along the offensive line. You at one point you're waiting for a previously injured center to come back so that you're not starting your 4th string center. And that's a position that you had a young, talented freshman. You had transfer portal guys, vying for spots. And so the season just was a catastrophe from the offensive standpoint, because you lost, again, your top 6 wide receivers. You lose several offensive linemen throughout the season. And the defense seemed pretty unaffected just in general. The leading corner, Gentry Williams, doesn't see much time at all throughout the season, had a shoulder issue that seems to be ready to roll now. Kendall Dolby, our, all-world, I guess we call it the cheetah. That's your kind of hybrid safety linebacker. He breaks his ankle during the Tennessee game. And that was pretty much on defense. I mean, it was mostly on offense, but needless to say, you're plowing through. You get your first road victory against Auburn in comeback fashion. You have a game against Alabama that looks like you're absolutely going to get the crap kicked out of you, and you come out and you just put together the most complete game that you've had all season. And then you ended up with a loss against Navy. You start out with a 21-point lead, and your quarterback's on his way out. You fired an offensive coordinator. So we'll just say that the 2024 season is best described by that piece of paper that I crumbled up and just tossed. What you take out of it is Brent Venables did turn the defense around. This is a defense that was top 10 in the nation in a lot of stats as far as efficiency goes. And that's with zero help from the offensive side of the ball. Against Tennessee, there were a couple times, Jackson, I don't know, I think that you and I talked about this a little bit, but there were times that we took the ball away 2 times against Tennessee, and the first offensive possession gave it right back to them. So even in the times that the defense just went, completely hulked out, the offense couldn't do much with it. And so the complementary football was just not, in with Oklahoma in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, because it was like all these high hopes for Jackson Arnold. I'll be honest, I don't think they should have let Dylan Gabriel go. Like I'd have kept him for another year.
That is a continuation, and a lot of the exterior football world goes, yeah, what happened there? What happened there, Coop? Like what was going on? So you look at everything in this aspect. You have Jackson on board, committed, 5-star Gatorade National Player of the Year. Played with Peyton Bowen, a 5-star safety. His younger brother Eli Bowen, who was our best defensive back last year. You have those guys in tow. Caleb Williams leaves with Lincoln Riley and heads out to USC. A completely different scenario in itself. And Dylan Gabriel's sitting on campus at UCLA, about to attend his first class. And Jeff Lebby at the time, now the Mississippi State head coach, gives Gabriel a call and says, "We could really use you, pal." And Gabriel says, "All right, let's do this." And so he then leaves UCLA and comes and starts here. Going throughout that whole year, Jackson never really showed that he was ready to be a concern for the program. In his mop-up time, he had a pass against the University of Tulsa. Again, Tulsa, but he comes in late game, throws an absolute dart for just a long touchdown pass. It looked good. And I think that Dylan, the kind of the understood issue, the understood, path that was going to be at the end of that 2023 season. Dylan was going to go to the NFL, and Jackson was the heir apparent at quarterback. Well, Dylan got a draft grade that didn't really want, or I guess lead him to going into the draft. And I think at that point it was still pretty new. But Dylan probably was looking at a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, maybe undrafted grade at that point. He had some injury concerns. He had a couple games where he was out because of concussions, and yeah, so that's the breaking point, right? Do you bring Dylan back? And he wasn't going to sit behind Jackson, and I don't think he was really appealing towards a quarterback battle. And so in this day of NIL, it was more profitable for him to head back further towards the West Coast, sign on with a program looking for a quarterback, and let Jackson take over. I don't think Dylan ever had the intent of coming back. I don't think that Oklahoma ever had the intent of Dylan coming back. I think it was just kind of an unsaid agreement of what was going to happen. So Dylan obviously goes to Oregon. They looked like one of the best teams in the nation the entire year, and Jackson can't seem to, I don't know, throw the ball over the middle, find open receivers at times. And so what it kind of comes down to is it looks like a bad decision. But I will say this. I don't think from Oklahoma's perspective, Jackson Arnold's perspective, or Dylan Gabriel's perspective that returning to OU in 24 was ever an issue. And I'll just say that Dylan Gabriel, an issue with concussions. I mean, I don't think he makes it 6 games last year at OU with the way that the offensive line was basically just duct taped and glued together. So I think it worked out best for Oregon, worked out best for Dylan. Unfortunately, didn't work really well for OU or for Jackson.
Well, I will say though, like Oklahoma, I've noticed they made quite a few changes, and they really love what Washington State was doing on offense. So it's like, yeah, we're gonna get Mater, we're gonna get your offensive coordinator, Arbuckle. We're taking everybody from there.
Well, it starts out with the OC search. Seth Luttrell was the head coach at University of North Texas. He was a fullback at OU. He was one of those just grit and grime guys that was going to do anything that you asked him to do. And so you hire him. I don't think that was the best method for Venables and Joe Castiglione, the athletic director. But they kept it in house and they hired a former Sooner. There were so many things that were just bad, and I won't get into all those, but he was let go late in the season. They switched it over to Joe John Finley, another previous Sooner who played tight end at the university. He is a guy who a lot of people see promise in as a play caller and as a head coach at some point down the line. But it was already too late. There's too much water in the boat, if you will. So you go and you take a look at who was the most coveted OC in the country, and it was Ben Arbuckle. What he was doing at Washington State, also tying his name to, he was the OC for Cam Ward when he was there prior to transferring to Miami. Also, a previous draft pick and Patriots quarterback, Bailey Zappi. He worked with him a lot also. So he had Ben Arbuckle had a pedigree of dealing with some really, really high class and high end quarterbacks. And if you go to the main page on ESPN.com right now, I mean, top newcomers for 25 college football teams, and it's John Mateer sitting there as the front screenshot. So, I mean, obviously, Mateer throws up 42 touchdowns, was extremely effective, was sacked over 30 times. So, he operated with massive efficiency and effectiveness in a chaotic area. So you go get Ben Arbuckle. John Mateer was not a dead set guarantee. He was down to Miami and Oklahoma and then North Carolina a little bit at the end. So he then commits. And what does that do? Well, you need a new OC, right? You got your new OC. By bringing in his starter from Washington State, you then take a look at the situation and you go, well, now they don't have to learn each other. They know each other. So now we get to, fast forward through this whole development and scheme. It also, John Mateer is, he is a coach on the field. He knows the offense. He knows it up and down. and he is not afraid to tell you when you're doing right and when you're not doing right. So he will get up in the middle of your backside and say, that's not how we do it. This is how we do it. And so he and Arbuckle have been able to come in up to this point and really do some cool things at Oklahoma.
Well, on the bright side, not going to Miami, he's not going to be blowing. He's not going to be having to deal with Cristobal blowing those games that they shouldn't lose. So it's like there's that, and he's not going to
Yeah.
have to deal with what's going on in North Carolina. I mean,
I can tell you a couple things. I don't know, obviously in the words of Cam Newton, hindsight's 2020, 50-50, whatever. But yeah, I mean, you go to North Carolina, you don't know what's happening there. Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick, but you see some of the decisions he's making, and maybe that's not the most effective route. You get rid of Mac Brown for somebody older, which doesn't make real good sense to me, but it is what it is. And then, yeah, I mean, Cam Ward was the number one draft pick. Could it be in a weaker quarterback draft? Sure, but still, he was picked number one. He was a talent. He is a guy who seems to be all football, and so now Mateer gets to come here. He's from West Texas. He grew up around this area. He was very, very, very under recruited. I want to say that he only had a handful of D1 offers out of high school, but a name that a lot of folks are familiar with, Jackson, is Baker Mayfield. And John Mateer right now is getting a lot of Baker Mayfield comps. And say what you will about Baker, especially for an Ohio State fan. Baker is a guy who gets the most out of his team. He is a guy who is leading the charge from get-go on doing the right thing and competing at the highest level. And so as far as Mateer goes, he has gotten a lot of comps to Baker, and it's not a bad person, especially seeing what Baker's doing down there in Tampa Bay right now.
oh man, it's like the Browns, they are regretting what they did to Baker now. Or if they have any sense, they should be regretting it now.
If they're not regretting it, they damn well should be. And, now look at what the Browns are doing in their quarterback room. They've got a lot of those previous mentioned names. You've got Deshaun Watson. You've got Dylan Gabriel now. You've got Shedeur Sanders. There's so much. I was talking to my son the other day, and he was like, I'm just going to get every answer on my test wrong. And I said, you realize that if you do that, the teacher knows what you're doing, and you're probably going to get an A. And it's not the same for the Browns. It's like if you line out every single wrong thing the Browns could do, they'll go do it. And it usually turns out to more Browns type of content. And so, it's just not a place that you want to be. But all in all, I mean, the Mateer saga is very, very highly anticipated. And you look at the OU season last year and you think, man, if you just had a pulse on offense, because OU's offense, Jackson, was not just not good. It wasn't that it was bad. It was that it was like generationally bad. It was incompetent. And it's crazy because, even as seeing some of the spring footage, from spring practices, everybody's getting so jazzed up about basic completions because it's been so foreign for over a year that you're like, when something's so bad and the OU offense was so bad that just basic competence looks like excellence. And so we'll see. Again, that's why they play the game.
Oh, yeah. That's what the Swami said best. That's why they play the games.
That's why they play the game.
Man, it's like I'm glad he's still at ESPN, to be honest.
Very, very much. And again, you look at Disney, you look at everything right there, and they continue to, cut salaries left and right. But there's some staples that it just feels like it would be a different broadcast network if the Swami was not there.
Agreed. But about 2025. We'll look at the schedule for a little bit. Now, the non-conference looks pretty good. Like it looks like you can have a good start. And Michigan, I'm going to be honest, I know that Sharon Moore is coaching in week 2, against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But I'm just not seeing him coach week 2. Like, I'm not sure. That just looks like an unknown factor. And is Michigan gonna be distracted? Are they not gonna be distracted? If I'm Oklahoma, I am using that turmoil in Ann Arbor to my advantage.
Well, let's just go ahead and start it this way. Nobody's worrying about Illinois State. Now,
No.
screen capture this because if something crazy happens and, you can come back to this clip, but you circle that September 6th game against Michigan, and I don't know if there's a bunch of stuff around it, but I think both of the teams tried to kind of get out of this game. And, just with OU heading into the SEC, Michigan dealing with the stuff that they were dealing with, and, just the playoffs the way that they are now. But this game is going to happen. I think that the 2-game ban for Sharon Moore, who is I don't know if you know this, Jackson, is a former Sooner offensive lineman.
Yep.
So
That's why he wanted to coach against Oklahoma.
Yeah. And so, Michigan wants to come down here, and this is a good test for them. Fun fact: Michigan's offense was just as bad as Oklahoma's offense last year. When you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. There's the adage: if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks. Well, 0 is still 0, and so Michigan had trouble last year. Coming off the national championship, you lose a lot on offense. You still had a lot on defense. Again, Edwards was one of the cover guys for the NCAA 25, football game, and they come out and the offense was just rough. So I don't know if anything, I know that the infractions are, I guess the 2-game ban is self-imposed by Michigan. What does the NCAA still have intact as far as any type of clout or authority? I'm not sure if it's anything. But the one thing I do know is Michigan comes in. I want to say that number 21 probably has a lot to do with their name rather than the outlook. Their quarterback's going to be down to a 5-star freshman in Underwood versus a couple different transfer targets. But Michigan lost what they did have on defense. They lost a lot more, and they lost All-American and Will Johnson at corner. They lose. A couple guys on the defensive line. And so they're going to be in a rebuild. I think that most of us Oklahoma fans see, that Michigan game as, that's just a big name brand coming in here week 2 instead of, a Tulane or something like that, like we had this past year. But it's going to be a big game. I would say that if I'm Coach Sharon Moore, I am going to try to do what OU did Alabama last year and just control the line of scrimmage and just make it an absolute fight in a phone booth and see what this OU team is going to look like. Because in everybody else's mind, OU is a solid defensive team with an absolute dog water offensive side. And I feel like that's going to be what the game plan is going to be circulated around. I think that it's going to be a little bit of a rude awakening, and I expect OU to win comfortably in week 2.
Yeah, I mean for me, that's gonna be a dogfight between Oklahoma and Michigan. I can't wait to see the Jackson Arnold game on September 20th. Like, are they gonna have Sean McDonough call that game? That would be awesome.
I think that I'm really interested to see because, again, Auburn also has a 5-star quarterback waiting in the wings and somebody who has not walked into spring practice thinking I'm fighting for number 2. He's coming for number 1. He doesn't give a damn who's out in front of him. And I'd say the reviews are a little mixed coming out of Auburn in the spring. I've seen some oh no's. I've seen some, well, Deuce looks really, really good. How long can Jackson Arnold hold on to this? It would sure be a shame for Jackson Arnold to lead Auburn in and then get pulled somewhere in the middle of that game for the 5-star freshman. But, again, this is a game where last year to where we go to Auburn. Jackson Arnold was pulled in favor of Michael Hawkins, who at that time was a true freshman, and his dad played defensive back at OU in the early 2000s, played for the Packers, so he comes from great pedigree. And it really, that game was about OU making a couple of big plays on offense. That's pretty much all they did, was a couple of plays. But fun fact, and for everybody watching, is if you go back into my Twitter timeline, I fell asleep at halftime of that game. I was here watching at home. May have had a few. Family left. It went dead quiet, and I passed out. I woke up after the game, and I was told what happened. And so a lot of our followers have suggested that I fall asleep at halftime for every game. But that game was it was big plays, and the offensive side of the ball is stacked for Auburn again. They've got a lot of great wide receivers, and if they can find a trigger man to do what they need to do, that's going to work out. Now, what does Jackson Arnold do? Because I'm telling you, if this is a kid who goes out and plays, and if he somehow relinquishes that spot, does he transfer again, or does he say, well, maybe this just isn't it for me? Maybe I'll just, get my degree, go pro in something other than football, as the commercials say. But he's going to be coming back. I don't think that the OU crowd is going to boo him. Coming in Oklahoma, Russell Westbrook just returns as part of the Nuggets to play the Thunder, and the Oklahoma crowd gave him a standing ovation as he checked in. Still a major person in this program. Well, that's because years of service. Whereas Jackson Arnold had one kind of mixed review year at Norman, but I do expect that OU will feel good about facing him when Auburn comes to town.
Well, and the season, the game that's really gonna make the season is the Red River rivalry, of course, on October 11th. Oklahoma, let's say Oklahoma upsets Texas. That could set up a whole lot of momentum, and especially if they're unbeaten going into that game. They upset Texas. If that does happen, that could be a momentum changer, and that can really get Brent Venables off that hot seat. And I'll be honest, though, I can't but feel like that Venables is in a similar position as his former boss, Dabo Sweeney, from 2011. Because like Clemson had a 6-7 year 2010, lost a ball game they really shouldn't have been losing. Then there's like a marquee non-conference game early season. Clemson has a chance to make some momentum. They beat Auburn on September 17th, 2011 on ABC. Then that sets the momentum for the rest of the 2011 season for Clemson. I'm not saying Oklahoma will automatically have a season like that in 2025, but it just feels like the similarities are there between 2025 Oklahoma and 2011 Clemson.
Well, let me start here. Texas and Oklahoma, whatever numbers are right next to the names, it's a rivalry. You can toss it out. It's the same thing as Auburn, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Miami. When you get together, when these programs get together, it's almost it's just almost impossible to predict what's actually going to happen. But if you look at Texas, Texas lost about 60% of their production this past year. The past 2 years, Texas. And I will preface this. I said that Texas was going to struggle a lot more than folks thought going into this past year because of what they lost. And I think they lost more again this year, but I think they return about 36-38% of their snaps from last year. They did add some portal additions, but let's talk about this real quick. Is right now, if you look at a lot of the lists being made for list season and engagement farming season, a lot of people have Arch as one of the leaders for the Heisman. A lot of people have Texas as one of the leaders for the national championship. You're returning, let's call it 40% of your production. I feel like that's a lot to ask of a first-year quarterback who's fortunately never thrown for more than, I think, just over 2,000 yards in a season. So you're asking a lot out of Texas and Arch Manning to win the Heisman, win the national championship in your first full year as a starter after losing over half of your production. But going into that game, like I said, you never know what's going to happen. Year one of Brent Venables, Dylan Gabriel gets a concussion the game before. OU's rolling out a fullback running Wildcat offense. Literally nothing on campus to throw out there from a D1 college football game aspect. The next year, OU goes, down there and they knock off Texas. Game-winning touchdown, Dylan Gabriel and Nick Anderson happened right in front of me. So I got lots of fun videos for that. And then this past year, everything's kind of held together with glue and duct tape on the offensive side of the ball. And really, Texas has about a 5-minute spree at the end with a couple turnovers at the end of the first half, and the game was over. You've heard the broadcast happen at times where the offense is so bad that like a 10-point lead feels like 35. And that's where OU was last year. So this year, what they're hoping to take into that game is complementary football, is an offense that is able to hold its own, and then a defense is willing to dictate it. The defense, picked a wrong week to have a bad week in that game last year, and let a couple things out of contain. But I say all that to say this is OU Texas. That game is going to be big. It's always going to be big. It's going to be basically the who has the heads up, because when it comes time to Oklahoma, when it comes time to Texas, it really doesn't know. And this may upset Sooner fans and Texas fans alike, but one of the reasons why OU fans are in such turmoil right now is because of the success that Texas is having. It looks like success. It looks like unearned success to a lot of Sooner fans, but you play the schedule that's in front of you. And if you got two tough teams on your schedule, then you got no excuses. Go out and beat the hell out of those other teams and, at least make it respectable against those two tough teams. And so I think that's a big piece of why OU fans are in a lot of frustration and want to dog walk Texas all the time, is because we've struggled, and it's been a struggle finding, rebuilding and developing an identity since Brent Venables has shown up on campus has been a little bit of a struggle. So how does that look this year?
Yeah, because I always think about 08 Texas Oklahoma. That was a classic. 07, that was a classic. 2000, 2001, those are classics. But 2023 was a classic.
23 was a classic. You start the game off by a really, really, really great defensive set. Quinn Ewers there, I think they were around the 30, 35 yard line. Jaron Kanik, who was a big linebacker prospect, now been switched over to fullback. He drops into coverage right how he's supposed to. Quinn Ewers double clutches. Gentry Williams jumps in front of Xavier Worthy and picks off the ball. OU goes down and scores. That game looked like it could have been a rout, but Texas gets a block punt. And instead of, possibly going down 21-0, 14-0, something like that, all of a sudden you got a ball game because you blocked a punt for a touchdown. And OU came out on the fortunate side. But I'm not going to lie. There was a star player's father who met me outside right during halftime, and the game started back on, and we're out there getting food with no massive rush to get back into the Cotton Bowl this past season because – you just knew that from offense, we weren't going to put much out there.
Yeah. It was 2024. It's I thought it'd be close, but it wasn't. But 2025, maybe it could be a lot better. But, the rest of that schedule, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Shane Beamer going against his old squad, the Sooners, that's going to be fun.
100%. Another thing that is a big piece of what OU is going to face this year, and I'm pulling it up over here on my side just to make sure that I quote this correctly, is first-time starting quarterbacks. OU walks into the season with a, first John Mateer, first year there. But if you look at OU's schedule, Michigan's going to be starting a brand new quarterback. And I'm going basically conference schedule, but you got Michigan, you got Auburn starts Jackson Arnold as a new quarterback. Texas is going to be starting Arch Manning as a new quarterback. Ole Miss is going to be replacing Jackson Dart. Tennessee's now replacing Nico Yamaliava. Alabama is now replacing Jalen Milroe. Missouri is replacing Brady Cook. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 12 opponents. And again, not counting the Illinois State, Temple, Kent State, but you're facing first-year quarterbacks. These are, outside of Lenore Sellers and Garrett Nussmeier, you're not looking at an ingrained, tenured quarterback at that school. So how does that fare? Does that give Brent Venables' defense a leg up because you have a group now that has grown into this defensive scheme? And I'm talking about the complete abomination about how our offense was this past year. That's how the defense was for quite a long time. And it got to a spot, Jackson, where OU fans knew that the opposing team was going to score on our defense. It was just how long would it take? If you had a goal line stand, there was no such thing as a goal line stand. It was just, they're about to score from the goal line. That's what it was like. And now you've seen, in that Texas 23 game, you got a goal line stand that keeps them out on 4 straight plays from the one. A lot of guys making big plays, but this defense really is going to, I think, have an advantage because you've got guys that have played together. I think the strength of the strength of the defense is going to be the defensive line, which is something I probably can't say in the past 20 years. It's been a long time since the defensive line was the strength of the team going into it. So you've got a line that puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. You got quarterbacks who are trying to learn get their rhythm in these new systems. But that's where OU is going to make a lot of their bread this year is how do you do that? How do you game plan against these new quarterbacks in these new systems with these new teams? As you have a defense who has been together and has solid players up the middle and big time playmakers looking to, go highly in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what 2025 will look like. I hope to see a 9-3 season or a 10-2 because, if Alabama's beating Oklahoma and Oklahoma goes 10-2, well, that's good for us.
That's a good win.
There you go. And it's it's a shame that they've played each other so few times, but I'm glad they're played each other in a conference game. That's pretty cool. And the 63 Orange Bowl where JFK was there, and then we saw the 70 Blue Bonnet Bowl where it was a tie. Alabama had those little white helmets in that game. I wasn't even born yet, but I saw that little 15-second clip of that game. It's where's the full highlights of that game? Oh, well, they don't have that.
It's you got to go to the ESPN, but yeah, I mean, I'll even go further is, some of the great matchups, I think it's the 2001, the Brody Croyle versus Nate Hibble matchup. I don't know where Brody Croyle is. Maybe you as an Alabama guy could tell me where he's at now, but Nate Hibble, is playing golf somewhere, and his brother is our golf coach at the university. And, he was following up, Josh Heupel, now the head coach at Tennessee after winning the national championship. The 2003 game, we go down to Alabama, just an absolute, a boxing match. You got the Trevor Knight outer body experience game. Was at the Sugar Bowl, so many years back at 2020, 12, 2013, somewhere in that range. But a game to where going into it, I mean, I think I said it when I joined you for Alabama week here this past year is, going in that game, that bowl game, I thought there's basically no chance that we're even going to keep this competitive. And we turn around and win. And then I said on your show, I'm thinking differently. I'm thinking much more worse. I think it's going to be a bigger beatdown, and it could result in Brent Venables losing his job. Well, then OU comes out and dictates the line of scrimmage from the get-go, and it was a psychotic environment. It was, an absolute stunner from start to finish. And I promise you, it was. There are some times that coaching, a game plan for the coach really, really shows up and is extremely evident. And that Alabama OU game from this past season was one of those.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's we did it to ourselves by losing that one. It's we shouldn't have, but we did it to ourselves. I'm glad to see Brent Venables keeping his job because it's like college football has gotten a little too pressure. Like they've added a little too much pressure on the coaches, which I
Trigger
mean,
happy to, yeah.
oh yeah, they're like trigger happy gunfighters. It's like good grief. It's like some of it is warranted and some of it is not so warranted. And
Well, that's one of the things is, when we were coming to SEC, that was, in the Big 12, OU, OU won well over half the Big 12 championships during its existence. And they were the flagship program, head and shoulders above every other program in the Big 12. But you didn't see the recycling of coaches like you do in the SEC because everybody wants wins. And the SEC is different in the fact that everybody around the program in Auburn thinks that Auburn should win the national championship game this year. Everyone around the program in Tennessee thinks that Tennessee should win the national championship this year. Everybody in Alabama, everybody in Georgia, everybody in Florida, it is. And so when you've got that much pressure, there are people. Well, let's say it this way: the OU softball team going on 4 straight national championships has 7 losses this year, and there's a faction of the fan base that is wondering what's going on with the program. Well, maybe you lost the greatest, recruiting class in softball history, and you have a bunch of freshmen playing and a couple of transfers, spattered in there. So when it comes time to passionate fan bases, it's not that we want people fired. It's that we want winning. We want things changed. We want to address issues, and we want them to get improved upon immediately. And some people are not willing to sit there and let that marinate and, work itself out. And I think that, going into this season, Brent Venables I don't think he's looking at anything along the lines of it would have to be a catastrophic 5-7 type of a season this year for Brent Venables to lose his job. I think that a lot of fans want to see progress. Last year, you saw the defense make its leaps and bounds, but there was an absolute just mishandling on the offensive side, and fans, they don't have any patience for that, especially now as the universities are now reaching out and saying, we need your help paying these players, because you feel like you have a vested interest in the university, and you feel like you have a vested interest to go and make sure that, your money is well spent. Well, where you may not actually be invited into boardrooms, I think you do have a good point in the fact that, like, if we are needed to help supplement, the payment of these players through NIL contributions, you want to see at least some well-ran organization. And when you look and your offensive coordinator screaming at the wide receivers coach, and people don't want to play, and people don't want to come off of the injury list because it's not worth it, that's going to raise some blood pressure.
Sure, plenty of it. Well, we'll say I do hope that Oklahoma can have a really good season, and I hope that there's not too many firings in all college football, because I'm just like, come on. It's like on the one hand, it's news, but on the other hand, come on, give this coach or that coach one more chance. But oh well.
And maybe that'll happen. I mean, listen, I think that you look around the league and you say, kudos to Oklahoma for not moving on from Brent Venables. And you look down at Florida State, thank you for not moving on from Mike Norvell. You should have played for the national championship. You're a bad injury away from playing for the Natty 2 years ago, and or competing for the national championship 2 years ago. You have this past year, and I think it had been chaotic and unintelligent for them to move on from Mike Norvell. And I don't think that I think last year was the outlier. But do you have the patience for that? Does the big money donor really make that pressure? And but I do think that we miss out on a lot of the decisions that didn't get made.
Oh yeah, we most certainly do. And with that, that is a wrap for episode 69 of the Jacksonian. And of course, for those who want to tune in to Unfair Sports or the magic that you are creating, Eric, where can people find you, good buddy?
You can find us on do we call it Twitter? Do we call it X? But find us on there. Look for me, Eric Cooper, Unfair Sports. Jay Smith, he is the namesake and kind of the man behind all the magic, and he created it. But find us on Locked In Sooners too. And so, yeah, YouTube, you can find us on all the streaming platforms.
There we go. I mean, it's like, man, like Jay's doing it all. Like he's doing like the Unfair Sports channel. It's like another channel. And he's doing Locked On Sinners. Like, good grief, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I was asked to do a Thunder podcast the other night, and I thought, I still got 60 hours a week, and I got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I don't got a lot of extra time. But yeah, whenever we do, come on in and check it out.
Oh man. Well, of course, check out the magic that Eric is creating on Unfair Sports on Linktree, YouTube, X, Instagram, and give him a follow on X on Eric_Cooper82. And of course, you can check me out on Alabama with the Voice of College Football Monday nights, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time with Coach Johnny Birch, Jeffrey Don't Talk Sports, and myself, where we go over our take on the latest news and notes of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Jeffrey and I take your calls Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, including the 31st edition of the Alabama College Show, where we talked a lot about Cedarian Morgan, and we talked a little bit about Indiana becoming the new, or Illinois becoming the new Indiana, according to Heather Dinich. That wasn't me talking. That was only sports talking. Like he had quite the vintage session, but it was hilarious. Like we had a lot of fun on the 31st edition, and of course, we have the 36th edition of Crimson Tide Live, where we go over our take on Kalen DeBoer's interview on Josh Pate Speaker Series, and we go over our quarterback Mount Rushmore and much more. And for those who want to check me out on the Jacksonian, like, comment, subscribe to Jackson Johnson 979, where we are 333 subs away from 1,000 subs. So we are getting there. We are trudging on. Thank you, good buddy. I appreciate it. And for more on what I've got going on Alabama at the Voice of College Football or on the Jacksonian, check me out on Jackson BOCFB on X/Twitter and on Instagram and Threads, Jackson Johnson 543908 on Instagram and Threads. And if you're not too crazy about Instagram or X or Threads, whatever, check me out on Jackson Johnson 97 Blue Sky Social, where I not only tell everybody about my updates on what's going on here and there, but I release my once a week calls on the Paul Feinbaum Show, where the weekends are full of surprises. And with that being said, we wish you all a happy weekend and to stay cool and stay away from that heat. Like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss another video or episode whatsoever, and we will catch you next time.